The Hidden Files of NASA. The Final Warning. Top Secret Report. NASA. July 20th, 1969. We are not alone. This statement did not come from a delusional scientist or a conspiracy theorist. It came from a classified audio recording hidden for more than 50 years, transmitted directly from the surface of the moon. On that day, millions around the world watched as Neil Armstrong stepped down the ladder of the Eagle module. But what they didn't hear were the words that were cut from the broadcast, censored by NASA in an instant. Neil Armstrong, we have visitors. I repeat, we are not alone. Mission control. Repeat, Neil, what did you say? There's something on the ridge of the crater ahead. The ships. They are massive, and they are watching us. Silence stretched for several seconds. Then, another voice came through the system, one that didn't belong to anyone in NASA's command crew. A distorted, deep voice, not of human origin. Leave. You are not allowed here. The signal suddenly became heavily distorted. Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stopped responding. Both seemed frozen, their heart rates spiking so high that NASA's medical team on Earth urged them to take deep breaths. Inside NASA's control room, the engineers exchanged glances, their faces pale. No one spoke. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Mission Director Gene Kranz gripped his headset tightly, sweat beading on his forehead. He knew. Humanity had just opened a door it was never meant to open. The signal from the moon returned to normal after about 2 minutes of distortion. Armstrong and Aldrin continued their mission as if nothing had happened. They collected soil samples, planted the American flag, and carried out planned experiments. But their voices, something had changed. The excitement was gone. Only fear remained, poorly concealed. While the world celebrated, NASA did not. An emergency meeting was held that very night. Everyone present was a high-ranking figure. The director of NASA, military generals, the president's science advisors. No one sat down. No one knew how to begin. We have just been warned, a trembling engineer said. Gene Kranz didn't take his eyes off the screen, replaying the censored transmission. They're not just watching us, they're in control. President Nixon received a private report. He didn't speak for 5 full minutes after reading it. Finally, he folded the document and issued an order. No one must ever know about this. That night, a directive was sent. NASA would continue moon missions, but all data would be strictly controlled. If any astronaut saw something beyond human understanding, they would be forced to remain silent. In the years that followed, Apollo 12, 14, 15, 16, 17 all recorded strange signals, but NASA never made them public. Then, in 1976, when Viking 1 landed on Mars, an unpublished photograph surfaced, a dark silhouette standing motionless on the horizon, gazing at the probe. 2 days later, NASA received a mysterious radio signal. When decoded, it revealed only 3 words: "Do not return." The message sent NASA into chaos. Engineers, scientists, and intelligence officers worked tirelessly to analyze its origin. The frequency didn't match any known natural source, nor did it resemble any interference caused by the probe itself. The signal was deliberate. Someone or something had sent it. At first, some dismissed it as a coincidence, mere background noise distorted by cosmic radiation. But then another transmission came through, this time encoded in an archaic mathematical pattern, one eerily similar to human prime number sequences. It was as if whoever sent it knew how to communicate with us. Panic spread behind closed doors. NASA classified all findings under Project Eclipse, a covert initiative meant to suppress any information that could trigger mass hysteria. Even among high-ranking officials, only a handful knew the full extent of the truth. Behind the scenes, intelligence agencies were pulled in. The CIA, NSA, and even the Pentagon had their say. Some believed it was a warning, while others feared it was something worse, an ultimatum. Then the disappearances began. Dr. William Hayes, an astrophysicist who led the Viking mission's analysis team, vanished from his home one night without a trace. His research, his notes, everything was erased. His colleagues were told he had resigned due to personal reasons. But those who worked closest to him knew better. One by one, others followed. Researchers who had studied the anomalies, signal analysts who had worked on the transmission, even military officials who had attended the emergency meetings. Some died under mysterious circumstances, car accidents, sudden heart attacks. Others simply disappeared. By 1980, Project Eclipse was buried so deep that even most of NASA's staff were unaware of its existence. Missions to Mars continued, but with new protocols. Every transmission was now heavily monitored. Any anomaly was immediately redacted. But the question remained, who or what had sent the message? And more importantly, were they still watching? By the late 1980s, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every time a deep space probe reached beyond Mars, strange anomalies appeared. Signals would distort. Instruments would fail without explanation. In some cases, entire transmissions were lost, vanishing as if they had never existed. NASA, under mounting pressure from the government, began shifting public focus away from manned deep space missions. Funding was quietly redirected. Officially, it was due to budget constraints. Unofficially, it was because they knew something was out there. Then came Voyager 2. In 1989, as the probe passed Neptune's orbit, it transmitted a series of images that were immediately flagged as classified. Those who saw them described something impossible: a massive structure drifting in the darkness, partially cloaked, as if bending light around itself. The images were never released. For months, NASA's top scientists analyzed the data. The structure was artificial, it was moving, and worst of all, it wasn't from our solar system. Days later, a new transmission arrived, this time not from Mars, not from Neptune, but from deep interstellar space. It came on the same frequency as the Viking 1 warning from 1976. Only 2 words this time: you know. Inside NASA's headquarters, fear turned into something worse: resignation. The message wasn't just a warning anymore. It was a statement of fact. They knew that we had seen them, and now they knew we understood. The final decision was made. Manned deep space exploration was to be halted indefinitely. NASA would continue unmanned missions, but only under heavy restrictions. No more risks, no more signals sent beyond our solar system. But it was already too late, because in 1991, an unknown object entered our system, moving too fast, too precisely, and on a trajectory that no comet or asteroid should ever follow. It wasn't just watching, it was coming. The object was first detected by an observatory in Hawaii. At first, astronomers thought it was just another interstellar rock, like Oumuamua. But this was different. It wasn't tumbling chaotically like a natural object. It was adjusting its course. Inside NASA, alarms went off. Within hours, Project Eclipse was fully reactivated. The Pentagon was briefed. The White House was put on high alert. The public was told nothing. Then came the second anomaly. As the object passed the orbit of Neptune, a brief, powerful radio burst was detected, originating not from the object itself, but from deep within our own solar system. A response. Something was already here. In a classified meeting, high-ranking officials debated their options. Could it be contacted? Should it be intercepted? The military proposed sending a probe armed with nuclear payloads, just in case. But before any action could be taken, the object did something no one expected. It stopped. For nearly 6 months, it remained motionless in space, hovering just beyond Saturn's orbit. Telescopes trained on it 24/7. Some within NASA whispered that it was waiting. But waiting for what? Then, on the night of December 9th, 1991, a second object appeared. This one was different, larger, closer. It emerged from the shadow of Saturn as if it had been hiding there all along. The first transmission came minutes later. Unlike the previous cryptic messages, this one was clear. It was not a warning, it was an instruction. Prepare for contact. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the signal ceased. Inside NASA, no one spoke. No one moved. For decades, they had hidden the truth, buried the warnings, silenced those who knew too much. But now, there was no more hiding. They were here. The world remained oblivious. While the public focused on politics, entertainment, and the mundane worries of everyday life, a silent war room deep beneath the Pentagon was preparing for something no one had ever faced before. The decision makers, top generals, intelligence officers, and NASA's highest-ranking officials gathered in an undisclosed underground bunker. A single question loomed over them all. How do you respond to a message like that? Some advocated for communication. Others, particularly within the military, pushed for immediate countermeasures. We don't know if this is a peaceful invitation or an ultimatum, one general warned. We must assume the worst. But then something changed. The object beyond Saturn moved again. not randomly, not in an uncontrolled drift. It accelerated straight toward Earth. The classified data spread like wildfire through secret intelligence networks. European space agencies detected it. The Russians, the Chinese, even independent observatories. Within days, the world's most powerful governments knew. But they all agreed on one thing: the public could never know. As the object neared Jupiter, another transmission arrived. But this time, it wasn't in an unknown alien language or mathematical code. It was in perfect English. Do not fear. The room fell silent. Scientists scrambled to analyze the message, searching for distortions, inconsistencies, anything that would prove this was some kind of hoax. But it was real. More real than anything they had ever encountered. And then, before anyone could decide their next move, something even more terrifying happened. The message was broadcasted directly to every major government network in the world. Without satellites, without cables, without any known method of transmission. Every secured government radio, every classified communication line, every military command center received the same 3 words at the exact same moment: "We are here." Panic erupted in every secret war room across the globe. Military leaders shouted over each other. NASA scientists scrambled to confirm the impossible. Intelligence agencies attempted to trace the transmission's source, but it had none, as if the message had simply appeared in their systems. Inside the Pentagon's underground command center, the U.S. Secretary of Defense turned to the president, his voice low and tense. "Sir, this is no longer a question of if. This is happening." Meanwhile, the object continued its approach. By the time it passed Mars, it was close enough for telescopes to capture its true shape. It was not a ship, at least not in any conventional sense. It was a structure, massive, intricate, ancient. Hundreds of interlocking rings, shifting like clockwork, pulsed with eerie blue light. It was not aerodynamic, nor was it built for war. It looked designed for something far more precise. A gateway, a machine, a warning. Then, without further transmission, it stopped. It now hovered in the void between Earth and the Moon, perfectly still, perfectly silent, watching. The world's most powerful governments panicked. The public still had no idea what was happening, but in classified circles, desperation took hold. One faction argued for diplomacy, urging caution. Another pushed for an immediate preemptive strike, despite not even knowing if weapons would work against it. Then, at exactly 3:33 on GMT, every electronic device on Earth, every phone, every computer, every radio, went dark for exactly 7 seconds. When they came back online, a single image was displayed on millions of screens across the world. A face, not human, not monstrous, something in between. And below it, a single message in every language ever spoken: "You were never alone." The world stood still. For the first time in history, there were no borders, no politics, no divisions, only a single, unspoken realization shared by all of humanity. We were being addressed directly. Inside secret command bunkers, leaders from every major nation watched in stunned silence as the alien face on their screens remained motionless. Its features were neither entirely organic nor mechanical, an eerie fusion of both. The eyes, dark and unfathomable, seemed to see through the screens, through the watchers, through humanity itself. Then the second message appeared. "We have watched. We have waited. The time has come." The room inside the Pentagon erupted into chaos. Some demanded a response. Others were too paralyzed to speak. Scientists, diplomats, and military strategists all fought to determine the next move, but there was no protocol for this. Then another event, one that shattered what little control humanity thought it had left. The sky changed. Across the world, stars began to move. Constellations distorted, celestial bodies shifted, as if something was bending space itself. Astronomers and physicists scrambled to explain it, but there was no explanation. And then they appeared. Not ships, not lights in the sky. Structures. Massive, incomprehensible, far beyond anything human minds could process. Some hung in orbit above the Earth, casting shadows over entire cities. Others hovered just beyond the moon, their surfaces shifting, writhing, as if they were alive. Then, for the first time since their arrival, the voice spoke aloud. Not through screens, not through radios, through the air itself. Everyone heard it, whether they were indoors, outdoors, asleep, awake. It was not a sound, but a presence. a force pressing against the human mind, whispering in a voice as ancient as the universe itself, "Step forward." And then the choice was no longer ours. A terrible silence swept across the planet. People fell to their knees in streets, in homes, in war rooms deep beneath the earth. Some wept, some prayed, others simply listened, unable to do anything else. And then the first ones stepped forward. It began in a remote village in India. A lone woman, eyes wide but unafraid, walked outside and looked up at the massive structure hanging above her. In New York, a young boy barely old enough to understand fear took a hesitant step toward the sky. In Tokyo, in Cairo, in Rio de Janeiro, across the world, others followed, not knowing why, only that something within them compelled them to move. The structures above responded. One by one, beams of light descended, not weapons, but corridors. Pillars of shifting energy, neither solid nor intangible, waiting for those who had chosen to answer the call. Governments scrambled. Military leaders screamed orders, but nothing could stop them. The ones who stepped forward were lifted gently, weightlessly into the sky. Some screamed in fear, others laughed, most simply accepted it, and then they were gone. Across the world, millions watched as the chosen vanished into the light. Their families were left behind, reaching for empty space. Their names were whispered in confusion, grief, and wonder. But then, as suddenly as they had disappeared, they returned. One by one, the missing reappeared in the exact places they had left, standing exactly as they had been before, but they were not the same. Their eyes were different, deeper, filled with knowledge. Their voices, when they finally spoke, carried something else. And in every language, across every border, they all said the same words: "It is beginning." The world froze. The returned ones stood in streets, in homes, in fields, and cities, surrounded by stunned families, soldiers, and scientists. They blinked as if waking from a dream, but their expressions were eerily calm. The first to speak was an old man in Buenos Aires. His voice was steady, serene. "We have seen." A young girl in Moscow whispered the same words, her small hands trembling. "We have learned." A scientist in Germany collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "We are not ready." Governments moved quickly. Those who had been taken were isolated, questioned, examined. But nothing made sense. Their vitals were normal, their memories intact, and yet they were changed. Then at precisely midnight GMT, the sky rippled. The alien structures, vast and incomprehensible, shifted. The stars bent and distorted around them, as if space itself was being rewritten. Then came the third message. Not in words, not in sound, in thought. Every living human felt it, a pulse, a weight in the back of their minds. Images flashed in their heads, a vast dark expanse, stars burning out one by one, a monstrous shape moving between galaxies, its form hidden in shadow. And then the voice, the first voice, the ancient voice, the one that had whispered from the void. "You must choose." The returned ones understood. They turned to their families, their leaders, their people, and spoke the final words of the night. "The architects are coming." And somewhere in the infinite black between the stars, something stirred. The weight of those final words crushed the world in a way no war, no disaster, no revelation ever had. The architects are coming. But who or what were they? The returned ones did not answer, not because they refused, but because they could not. Whatever knowledge had been placed in their minds was fragmented, incomplete, or perhaps too vast for a human mind to hold. And yet they knew one thing with absolute certainty: a choice had to be made. For weeks, the world stood at a crossroads. Scientists worked day and night to decipher the alien structures, the shifting stars, the silent, waiting presence beyond the moon. World leaders held secret meetings, struggling to grasp the scale of what was coming. And all the while, the sky watched. Then, on the 33rd day after the message, the final event occurred. Above every major city, above every continent, the alien structures opened. Not like ships, not like machines. They unfolded like living things, revealing vast, swirling gateways, windows into something else. Some saw worlds, cities that stretched beyond the horizon, strange suns rising over oceans of liquid light. Others saw emptiness, a void so deep it crushed the soul to gaze upon it. And in some places, people saw figures, tall, elongated beings that stood just beyond the threshold, watching with unreadable intent. And then the final message came. It did not ask. It did not explain. It simply was. Step forward or stay behind. No threats, no force, a choice. One by one, people stepped into the light. Scientists, artists, wanderers, those who dreamed of the unknown. They vanished, crossing into whatever lay beyond. Others stayed, afraid or unwilling to leave the only world they had ever known. And then, as the first red light of dawn broke over Earth, the gateways closed. The alien structures folded in on themselves, shrinking, dimming, vanishing into the void as if they had never been there at all. The stars returned to their rightful places. The silence was absolute. The ones who remained would never know what lay on the other side. The ones who left would never return. And somewhere out in the infinite dark, the architects watched.